Hey guys, it's Sabrina. Today I'm going to be doing yet another book Unhaul. I love doing these videos periodically. I love getting books off my shelf so I can fit more books on my shelf because I have a book buying problem. So let's just get into it. And let's just get rid of some books, you know? Okay, so the first book, don't mind me bending down throughout this video because all the books are at my feet. So I feel like you're going to see a lot of cuts of me just like talking like this. But hopefully I won't do that. So the first book I have to talk about is The Soul of an Octopus, A Surprising Exploration to the Wonder of Consciousness by Cy Montgomery. This book, it tells you what it's supposed to be about, right? It's supposed to be about octopuses and their consciousness and the wonder of their consciousness. But really, this book is just about like a lady who spent a lot of time with octopuses in an aquarium and then she went scuba diving and saw some octopuses in real life, and she got to pet the octopuses, and she loved them so much, and then some of them died, and then, I don't know why I'm laughing, it is sad that they died, but it's just nothing really happens in this book, and it doesn't really talk about much. I feel like I learned nothing. I certainly didn't learn anything about, octopuses' consciousnesses. That's not how octopuses' consciousness is. I don't know how to say that, but you get what I mean. I was really disappointed in this because I really want to read books about animals, and this author has published a lot of books about different animals, so I was excited picking this up because I thought I had found a new favorite author and I could read all her books and learn so much. But this book just makes me not want to pick up any of her other books, which is really disappointing because she's written about dolphins and turtles and tortoises, not tortoises. Anyway, I was really excited about it, and now I'm just feeling disappointed. So if you do know anyone who writes about animals, let me know, because I love learning about animals so much. I don't know why. But this, unfortunately, was a letdown, so hopefully we'll find a better home on Pango Books. Next, we have The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I don't know if I'm ever saying his name right at all, even a little bit. But I tried. I don't know what this book is about. I actually did start reading it years ago, and I got to chapter 2. But then I realized I didn't want this to be my first book by him. I wanted to read Crime and Punishment because it's the famous one. Or the most famous one. And I'm realizing now that I just want a different cover of this. This is just the Barnes & Noble Classic Edition, and there's nothing wrong with it at all. But I just personally want a really pretty classic edition of it. So that's why I'm getting rid of this one. Then we have The Beautiful by Renee Audier. This is a vampire book that follows this young woman, Celine, who flees Paris after killing someone and travels to New Orleans and is living in a convent and just trying to have a new life and not be convicted of murder. While she's there, she obviously meets a very, very charming boy. And she also gets involved. What's it called? It doesn't say anything on the back. But it's the secret society of kind of magical people with something of lions. But I can't remember it. There wasn't really anything wrong with this book. It's just a YA, I had my complaints. But at the end of the day, YA just isn't for me, so I really shouldn't have picked it up. I do think I'd be interested in continuing the series if I found them on Book Outlet for $1 or something. But ultimately, it's not something I'm dying to get my hands on, and it's not something I feel I need to keep on my shelf. Then we have some nonfiction, and that is Dying for an iPhone, Apple, Foxconn, and the Lives of China's Workers by Jenny Ton, Mark Selden, and Pun Nagai. This book talks extensively about Foxconn, which, if you don't know, is a very large manufacturing tech company in China and also Hong Kong and Taiwan. They make Apple products, so that's why it's focusing on Apple specifically. And it's a bad company, morally. They treat their workers like shit. And this book was actually inspired, I don't inspired, but they wrote this book because of some mass suicides at Foxconn. So they actually went undercover and researched Foxconn, what it's like to work there. They interviewed people who worked there firsthand and saw their complaints. It was actually a really interesting book, and I have some thoughts about giving this away. Part of me is maybe I should just keep it, but ultimately I only gave it 3 stars. And I just feel it was too much of an overview, and I wish I had delved into some issues a bit deeper. But I do think it's worth a read if you think this is interesting. Go for it. It also has I like the cover with the death apple, it's clever. Then I have a poetry collection Things You May Find Hidden in My Ear by Musab Abu Taha. This is a Palestinian poetry collection. And so the poems have to do with like Palestine, living under occupation, the evilness of Israel, basically what you would expect. I did actually like this, but poetry just doesn't stick with me. Like, it doesn't. I read poetry and I want to have like grandiose feelings about it, of like elegant, beautiful writing. But then I read it and I'm just kind of like, okay. And then I go to the next poem and I'm kind of like, okay. And I just keep reading it like that. And it doesn't like hit me hard like I want it to. And I think this poetry collection actually came the closest to maybe hitting for me, because it was also like political. But at the end of the day, I still wasn't like crazy about it. I don't know. I feel like guilty talking about that, especially because it's like a book by a Palestinian author and I want to support Palestinian authors. But ultimately, I think that someone who likes poetry a lot more than me would give this a better home. So I think that's what's most important. So hopefully someone will find this and really love it. It's not a bad collection. It's just, it's a me problem, you know? Then we have A Diary of Blood by S.T. Gibson. This book follows one of Dracula's brides. He turns her into a vampire after this, like, she's, like, dying. There's some, like, mass killing event. They never really clarify what it is, I don't think. She's dying, so he turns her into a vampire. She lives with him for many years, and they start acquiring, like, other lovers, other brides, and grooms, and it's like a polyamorous thing, but the whole time Dracula's just this toxic, terrible person and they all hate him. So I didn't like the writing in this book. I thought it was trying really, really, really hard to be lyrical, and it just like was off-putting. Even though I'm someone who loves like flowery lyrical language, it just wasn't working for me, and I just didn't really like it. And I think I can find a better home for sure. Then we have Labyrinth of the Spirits by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. This is in the Shadow of the Wind series. I did not know that when I picked it up. When I picked it up, I thought it was like another book by the author, and I was excited to read it. So I've kept it on my shelf for like well over a year because I was like, oh, I'll get to it eventually. But I don't have the second book in the Shadow of the Wind series. And I actually went to like my Goodreads review of the Shadow of the Wind a little while ago, and I didn't rate it as highly as I remembered. Like, I think I only gave it 3 stars or maybe 2. So I guess I didn't really like it that much. And it's been years and years and years, and I haven't bothered to continue with the series, so I don't even know if I'm going to. So I'm going to get rid of this, and if I do one day continue with the series, I'll just rebuy it. But for right now, it's taking up valuable shelf space. Next, we have The Mist by Stephen King. This is a book about, like, this mist, if you hadn't guessed that by the title, that overtakes this town, and it's deadly, and you're following a bunch of people who are stuck in, like, a grocery store, and, like, they can't go outside because of the mist. And that's all I remember. It was okay. I didn't hate it. I liked it even. But it didn't blow me away, and it's not like a book I want to keep particularly. Next, we've got My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. This book follows our main character. What's her name? Oh, it doesn't say on the back. It's like Jazz, or... It's not Jazz. It's something. Her name is something. Like, she has a name, I promise. But essentially she's really obsessed with like slashers, and then she's convinced that a slasher is coming to her town because certain things aren't happening, and she gets really excited. I was bothered by this book because it just had too many slasher references that I didn't get, and it was very off-putting. I also did... Jade is her name. I also didn't like that she was so obsessed and, like, happy about a slasher coming to her home, because it's like, why are you excited at the thought of, like, mass murder in your community? Like, that's a little much. So, I just ended up liking it, which is really disappointing, because I thought I was going to love it, actually. And I just want to keep it. I might get this to a friend, actually, because he mentioned wanting to read it, so... It won't go to waste. This is a really random one. I got this one from my dad, because my dad's obsessed with, like, the American Revolution. And that is A People's History of the American Revolution, How Common People Shaped the Fight for Independence by Ray Raphael. I haven't read this book. I have nothing against this. I even think it sounds kind of interesting. But at the end of the day, out of, like, all the nonfiction, they're actually, like, right behind me. So that's why I'm making that motion. All the nonfiction on my shelf, this is, like, one of the ones that appeals to me the least. And my dad has an entire library of stuff about the American Revolution. So if I ever want to read anything about the American Revolution, I can just dip into my dad's library. And this, like, isn't at the top of my list of things I want to know about the American Revolution, to be honest. So, getting rid of it. After that, we have The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. This is actually a really cute edition. I got it from Ollie's for like $4. But I want the Penguin Cloth Bound edition, which I'm pretty sure they have this book, and if they don't have it, they're going to be making it at some point, I'm sure. I have no idea what happens in this. I know that it uses like the N-word a lot or something. Isn't that a thing? Which is kind of uncomfy. I don't know. Mark Twain just isn't really at the top of my list of like, author I need to read right now, you know? And again, I want a different edition if I'm going to read it. So I'm just going to get rid of this one. I'm going to sell it online, hopefully. Then we have Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. I don't know much about this book. I know that it takes place in like Appalachia and it deals with addiction and that everyone loves this book. Like it's really highly raved about. And I really want to read it, but I accidentally bought a large print edition. So I actually bought like a different edition from Barnes & Noble so I can get rid of this one. It's just too big. It's too big. I have limited shelf space. I can't have books this big that I don't want to read. I didn't even want a large print edition. So I'm getting rid of it. Then we have A Passage to India by E.M. Forster. I know nothing about this book. I got it from my sister. She was getting rid of some books that she had to read for college, and I took like all of them, and I don't know why. Because I don't know anything about it, so I don't really have much interest in it. If this is something you think I should read, let me know. Maybe I'll keep it. But that's all I have to say. Then I have Text Messages for How I Found Myself Time Traveling by Yassine Narsi Alsaman. This is a poetry collection, and as I said previously, I'm not a poetry girl. I got this from Haymarket when I was in their book club, which meant that like they sent me all of the books that they published, which was amazing. But ultimately, I feel like I'm just going to rate it low because I'm not that interested in it, even if I do read it. So I think that's kind of a mean thing to do. And if I'm not interested in it, I should just give it away. That's what I'm going to do. And on a similar vein, I have 2 other books I'm getting rid of for the exact same reason, also from Haymarket. The first of which is Doppelgangbanger by Courtney Lamar Charleston. So, same reason I just said. And also Mama Feist Represents by Cheryl Boyce Taylor. Same thing. Then we have 2 books that I bought for a college course that I actually ended up dropping and never taking, so I don't need to keep them. And that is Counter-Revolutionary and Revolt by Herbert Marcuse. And the first and second discourses by Jean-Jacques Rousseau, I think is how you say his name. I don't need these. Another book I got from Haymarket that I'm just not interested in is Night Thoughts, an essay by Wallace Shawn. I don't know this man. That's it. This one I have some mixed thoughts about getting rid of, and that is We Spread by Ian Reid. This is a horror novel that follows like an elderly woman with dementia. So you don't know if like the horrors she's talking about are actually real or if it's just like her old age getting to her. I liked this book, but I didn't love it, and that's kind of why I'm thinking about getting rid of it. But then also something tells me that maybe I'll want to read this again one day. So I'm on the fence about this one. Let me know what I should do down below. Another book that I got from my sister that I don't want, Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. Know nothing about this. Tell me if I should keep it. If I'm going to love it, I'll keep it. But I don't think I'm going to love it, so I'm getting rid of it. Then we have The Measure by Nikki Ehrlich. This book takes place in a world where like one day everyone wakes up and on their doorstep is a string, and the length of the string tells them how long they're going to live. I actually really enjoyed this one. I gave it a 4 stars. But then it just didn't really stick with me, and as time goes on, I don't like care about it very much. So I think it's okay to get rid of it and take it off my shelves. I'm trying to go quickly because my friend and I are supposed to hang out, and she just texted me saying she's on the way. I think she's only a 10-minute drive, and I still have a bunch of books, so I'm gonna try to get through these pretty fast. I'm sorry if I'm not giving long descriptions. The Dementia Concept by Joshua J. Freitas. Bought this because my mom, thank God. My grandmother, though, also sad, was suffering from dementia, and I wanted to help and like understand it more. And then she died. So I don't need to keep this book anymore. Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldry. I have a whole vlog where I talk about this one in my cozy fantasy vlog. This is about like an orc or something. She's something like that. And she decides, she used to be like a mercenary, and then she decides that she just wants to have a coffee shop. And so she finds a place to have the coffee shop. She finds someone to work there. She finds someone to help her build the place. She finds someone to help bake treats for the coffee shop. And it was just so boring. It just was not for me. The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Clean. I read this from the same vlog, so if you want my deeper thoughts, just go there. This book is very problematic. I really hate the author's like inspiration for this book, and it really bugs me, so I don't want to keep it. And another book from that vlog is Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. This one is cute, but I just didn't love it. So if you want my thoughts, go to that vlog, but getting rid of it. At Gettysburg, or What a Girl Saw and Heard of the Battle by Mrs. Tilly Pierce Allman. I have 2 copies of this book. I bought one when I went to Gettysburg myself, and then my dad went to Gettysburg a couple years later and also bought it for me. So I only need 1 copy. Another book I got from my sister that she had read in college, Urunako by Afra Ben. I don't know what this book is about. I don't need it. The Anti-Racist Writing Workshop, How to Decolonize the Creative Classroom by Felicia Rose Chavez. Another book I got from my Haymarket subscription. I think this is definitely like a worthy book to read if you're someone who has a creative classroom, but I don't. And I'm not in like art school or anything, and it just doesn't really apply to me. I'm not the target audience. Palestine, A Socialist Introduction, edited by Sumaya Awad and Brian Bean. This book I've heard some shit about, actually. I've heard a lot of critiques of this book saying that it's not actually a socialist introduction and that the writers like say dumb things about socialism in here. So there are other books about Palestine that I'd rather read. I don't need this one. The Red Pyramid, it has no cover, by Rick Riordan. This is the first book, I think, in his like Egyptian mythology series. Loved it when I was little. I've never continued on with it, and it doesn't even have the dust jacket, so I'm not gonna keep it. A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin. This is her young adult fantasy series. I liked it, but I didn't like it that much, and that's all I have to say. The Similarian by J.R.R. Tolkien. Tolkien. I can't fucking speak. Dear God. This is a second copy. I already have another copy, so I don't need 2. And the copy I do have is like an older mass market paperback, and it's just like kind of fun, so I wanted to keep that one. The Elfstones of Shannara by Terry Brooks. This is actually a signed copy that I got from my dad, and then he got rid of it and gave it to me. So, but from what I understand, this is like in the series. Like, it's not the first book. It's like the 3rd or 4th book in the series or something. And I'm just not that interested, to be honest. Maybe one day I'll start the series from the beginning and they'll have a jolly good time. But I don't know. It's just not really happening for me right now, so I'm getting rid of it. And last but certainly not least is The Wall by Marlon Haushofer. This book follows a woman who's like in the mountains with her cousin and her husband. And then her cousin and husband like go out for the day and they don't come back, and she gets like suspicious, and then she realizes the invisible wall has gone up between her and everyone else on the planet. And she's left behind on the other side of this wall with like a cow and a cat and a dog. And it's like a story of survival. I thought the premise sounded really interesting, but it's just like a day by day kind of her surviving, and it was kind of boring. So getting rid of it. There you go. That is my most recent Unhaul batch of books. I'm going to be listing all these on Penguin Books, so if you want one, maybe check out the app. I'm not going to link my specific profile because I don't want to give you guys my address, but if you happen to buy from me, thanks. Hopefully you won't know it's me, but you might. Maybe I shouldn't be advertising that. I'm just going to stop. I only have like 5 followers, so it doesn't really matter. Everything's fine. I gotta go. My friend Janelle is almost here. Goodbye. See you soon with another video, and thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.